only way to fill the gap in my identity is with intentionality. That's where most of the tension and stress of people's lives come from, in the disparity between being and doing, and the disparity between doing and having.
All right, welcome to another edition to the Journey to Freedom podcast. I am Dr. B. I'm your host today, and today is an exciting special episode. It's my first episode ever working with somebody who has over 1 million subscribers. And so Myron hit that just in the last few months, and it has just been just so fun watching the progress over the last 3 years. And, I think he was a couple 100,000, maybe 300,000 when I started watching him, and just to watch it progress over time. Myron, I don't know. I just watched a video with you and Omar. And at the beginning of Omar said, "I want to thank you for helping me make $1 million." Now, I'm not there yet, but I'm thanking you in advance because I know it's going to happen. But what I do want to thank you for is the fact that you've made me a better man. You have made me, I have taken the things that I've learned. I just turned 60 last month, so I just had a birthday.
Happy birthday.
And so thank you. And I am so much better over the last 3 years than I ever was. And I kind of identify a lot with you because we're kind of in that same era. Like I literally watched an episode of The $6 Million Man last night, which is, it was on. Okay. So yeah, it's just, and I think of the times when you talk about Mr. Ed and all that kind of stuff. And so what's kind of cool is Journey to Freedom came out of, I went to this trust seminar guy, Dave Horsager, and he had a seminar where we was talking about trust leadership and how important trust is. And I look around the room and I've said to myself, being a Black man in America, that's great, but it's not define me. It's not the most important thing. It's not, I don't count, but I literally counted, like we do sometimes, how many folks of color were in the room. And there was like 30 of us out of 500. And I was wondering why. And and I came back and I started praying about it. And God said, I kind of want to have you work with, folks of color. He said specifically Black men. I said, I don't know if that's what I want to be, but I'll be obedient to it. And so Journey to Freedom is part of a coaching program and thing that I created as a result of just, interviewing. I've now done over 150 episoades of successful Black men. And now I'm starting to do Black women and stuff. And so part of it came because I went to the Make More Offers Challenge with you. And I asked for a question. I said, will you be on my podcast? And you said, wait a minute, because I think I was about 30 episodes. And you said, well, when you hit 50 episodes, then we can talk about it. So I went back to work. I said, I'm going to go do 50 episodes. So I got to 50 episodes. And I said, he's not going to believe me. I'm going to fly out to Florida and I'm going to go to Bible study and I'm going to show up and I'm going to let him know that I did 50 episodes. So I got there and you said, hey, meet with Larry, get some things. But I didn't stop. So between the time I was in Florida last year and now, I've done over another 100 episodes where I'm just going, this has just been, such an incredible journey to be able to do that. But you've helped me because you said, do this. And I did it. You said, hey, you need to have a book. So I wrote 3. So I just finished my 3rd book this weekend. And I just keep moving forward as a result of the things that you're teaching me. And so usually in this podcast, I start out and I want you to tell your story, however you want. And then I'll add in, I was just telling Myron before we started, I've watched at least 1,000 hours of his. So I believe he doesn't know me very well, but I know Myron Golden because one of the things you've done is you've been vulnerable enough to spend the time online sharing who you are with all of us. And without that, I don't think I'm the man that I should be, or without that, I don't think I could grow the way you've helped me be able to grow, because you are willing to not just, say all these things that you can do, like programs and, be a better business strategist and coaching, but you also talk about your life. You talk about you talk about growing up. You talk about you're assessing the trees right now. So I understand all of that right now. And I can't wait to spend more time with you, but I'd love for you to kind of just start out, tell the part of your story that you want to share.
Yeah, so my name's Myron Golden. I'm the second of 7 brothers. My parents were very hardworking people, James and Caroline Golden, and I give them so much credit for what my life has become because they did an amazing job at a time it was very difficult for parents to do an amazing job with not with 7 children and 7 black sons as well. It's just what they did was remarkable. And so I had polio as an infant because I was born in a segregated hospital and contracted polio as an infant. So that was a major impact on my life because I walk with a brace on my leg. I walk with a limp that I don't notice unless I see myself walking past the mirror or past the glass door that has a reflection in it. But other people notice. And so when I was a kid, I couldn't run. So other kids made fun of me, blah, blah, blah. And I just think all of that stuff made me stronger because I believe that everything that happens to you happens for you. I'm one of those people who did well in school all the way through the 3rd grade, and it went downhill from there. I liked the 10th grade so much I took it twice and managed to graduate 2nd in my class from high school. It was a class of 2. My little brother was the valedictorian, and now you know the rest of the story. But went off to college, met this beautiful girl, wrote her a bunch of poems. She finally married me after 3 years, and we proceeded to struggle even more than I was struggling by myself. But we had a dream, and we started working towards that dream. I got recruited into selling financial services of insurance and investments through a network marketing company. And when I did, I really worked that business like my life depended on it. I was terrible at selling. I was terrible at leadership. I was terrible at business, but I was learning some new skills that would take my life into a stratosphere that I didn't know existed. And so here we are some almost 40 years later, like 38 years after that whole thing. And we've made millions of dollars, lost millions of dollars, gone through like incredible ups and just absolutely heart-wrenching lows. And now we have a business that is doing quite well, and we impact entrepreneurs all over the world. In fact, we're in the middle of a Make More Offers challenge right now. And I don't know, we have, 350, 370 people. I didn't look this morning. I looked yesterday. It was like 330 something. So I'm sure it's 350, 370, 380, might be 400 because we usually sell the most tickets the last day. And so we're here. And I teach entrepreneurs how to scale their businesses. I teach high-level entrepreneurs how to create, convey, and convert premium value offers faster and better than any coach in the world. In fact, while other coaches are doing their best to help their clients make 6 and 7 figures a year, I'm actually helping my clients do 6 and 7 figure days. So that's what we do. I've written some books. I do some coaching. I'm always in learning mode. And I have a YouTube channel that we create. I have a YouTube channel for business, which is my name, Myron Golden. And I have a YouTube channel for Bible study, which is Bible Study with Myron Golden. So that's, I've been married it'll be 40 years this year. And I have my son who works with me in my business, my daughter who works with me in my business. We have my wife and I have one son in heaven. And now we're just, we're by the grace of God doing our best to have an impact and bless people's lives in as many ways as we can. So that's pretty much my story. I don't know if I didn't tell something you wanted me to share or did. I don't know. That's how I think of it.
Yeah, no, there's so many like nuances in your story, and that helps you, sure, I guess, explain a story. Like, you talked about, one of my favorite ones is when, your dad says that the Bolt's not going to beat you guys because of the, he doesn't have a brain and you have a brain. And, so that's
all those lessons.
Yeah. What I found, which is really kind of cool, is that there are, several things that you talk about that you don't mind repeating over and over and over again. Like you've got 100%. like 15 different things, and I've kind of been writing them down. And I was
cool.
The other day.
I'd like to know what they are.
Yeah, they are. Believe me, I could go through them, whether it's the law of entropy, the law of energy, like I said, the Genesis chapter 1, all the things that happen in Genesis, the law of creation, the 4 levels of value, and so this is what's amazing, because I think
Perpetuating the idea of the zero-sum game, which is not real.
So what of these what do you think is the favorite? Is the law of values your favorite to talk about, or what of your things that you love to talk about all the time? Which is the one that you think makes the most impact, or your favorite too?
My favorite thing to talk about is be, do, have. It's like the fundamental foundational principle of success. Be, do, have. God said the very first thing God said to a human being. This might make it relatively important. Is be fruitful, do multiply, do replenish, do subdue, and have dominion. Be, do, have. Be, do, have. There is like people desire most frustration that people have in their lives is either in the tension between be and do or the tension between do and have. They desire to have something that they haven't done anything to deserve, or they are attempting to do something that they've not become the person who can do it. That's where most of the tension and stress of people's lives come from, in the disparity between being and doing, and the disparity between doing and having.
Wow. That is so, as I was just thinking about this, where you say, can't be, can't do, can't have, do, be a little,
be, do, have, which means be a little, do a little, have a little, be a lot, do a lot, have a lot. It also means don't be, can't do, can't have. Like nobody's going to circumvent be, do, have. It's the first principle of success. Be, do, have. And what's really interesting about that is being speaks to our identity. I have to become the person. Being speaks to my identity. My identity is who I am. Now, here's the problem. Most people have a phantom identity. What I mean by that is they don't know who they are. And they don't know who they are based on whose they are because they're more in tune with what I call their lie-dentity than they are their identity. And what's their lie-dentity? Their lie-dentity is all the things all the people in their lives told them all their lives they are not. You're not smart enough. You're not tall enough. You're not educated enough. You're not good enough. You're not rich enough. You're not handsome enough. You're not beautiful enough. You can't dance good enough. You can't sing good enough. You can't run fast enough. You can't fight tough enough. Who you are is not enough. That is your lie-dentity. And most people are more in tune with their lie-dentity than they are with their identity. So they are more familiar with who they aren't than they are familiar with who they are. So B speaks to your identity. And then what people do to attempt to overcome what I call the lie-dentity is they create what I call the my-dentity. And the my-dentity is also a fake identity, except instead of one that other people give to you, it's one you create for yourself to prove to the people who gave you the lie-dentity that their lie-dentity is not accurate, right? But it's all, your my-dentity is not who you are either, because you don't create your identity any more than a baby creates itself. You get your identity from the one that created you. And so I have to get my identity from the ultimate identity. And the ultimate identity is the I am that I am. And so if you think about that, I am that I am, that's a statement. We just had a sound panel fall off the wall. That was fascinating.
Oh, no.
It's okay. I'm sure you can edit that part out. So my identity is like I have to understand that I am only who God says I am. Now, if there's a disparity or there's dissonance between who God says I am and who I think I am, God is not the problem. Right? I'm the problem. And the phrase I am is a present statement. And as human beings, we really have a hard time dealing with the present. We have a hard time. People say be present, but we don't even know how to do that. Like, because being present in the arena of time is very challenging. Why? Because as soon as I say now, it becomes then. So in our experience of life, we have two periods of time. We have now and we have then. So we have the past and we have the future. But we don't know how to experience the present. But God operates in time, but he exists outside of time. He exists in eternity. And eternity is the forever now. So that's why God is the I am that I am and not the I was that I was or the I will be that I will be, because eternity is the forever now. Well, if you think about that, I am are the two most powerful words that exist. So what if thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain? What if that means, because vain means emptiness, nothingness. What if it means you take God's name and attach it to something that perpetuates lack? For instance, you say, I am poor. So now you're taking the power of, you're taking your limitation and you're infusing it with the power of eternity. What if you say, I am so stupid? You're taking your limitation and you're infusing it with the power of eternity. What if you say, I am such an idiot? Well, what if that's what it really means to take God's name in vain? You take the most powerful name that exists and you empty it of all its power. I'm not saying that's what it means, but I'm just saying, what if that is what it means?
Oh my gosh.
So that's why this is my favorite thing to talk about, because being speaks to my identity, but doing speaks to my activity. Well, most people think that if they're not succeeding, the thing to do is to try harder. I believe that, do more of what's already not proven to not work. Yeah, that's a good formula, right? For frustration and being exhausted, right? But what if the real secret to transformation was, if you don't like the output, change the input, right? The input for activity is identity. Identity is the input, activity is the output. So if you don't like what you're doing and you'd like to do more, then go change the input and become more. Because being speaks to my identity, but doing speaks to my activity. Now, there's a gap in my identity. There's a gap in my identity. There's a gap in everybody's identity. There's the gap between who I am right now and who I have the potential of becoming. Because potential is the difference between who I am and who I could be. Potential is the difference between what I'm doing and what I could be doing. Potential is the difference between what I have and what I could have, right? And so as I'm going through my life and I'm experiencing life and I've got this gap in my identity, I have the potential to be this, but I'm only this. How do I fill the gap in my identity? That's the question. How do I fill the gap? How do I fill the gap in my identity? That's a great question. Isn't that a great question? How do I fill the gap in my identity? Like, I could say, I don't know. Could I fill it with water? No, that's not it.
You have to become more, right?
Could I fill it with No. How can I fill the gap in my identity? Like the difference between who I am and who I could be. The only way to fill the gap in my identity is with intentionality. I have to be hyper intentional about becoming more. Think about this. I have to become hyper intentional about becoming more. Have you ever thought about the fact that in order to improve in life, it requires two things: energy and intention. Right? You're not going to accidentally improve long term. That's not going to happen.
No.
You're not going to do nothing and improve. So it requires energy and intention, which creates directed, right? You're taking your energy and you're directing it intentionally at an outcome, right? Okay, cool. So if that's the case, that I feel my that like progress, improvement can only be created through energy and intention. Do you not find it fascinating? You probably do. I find it fascinating that in order for me to improve, it requires intention and energy. But in order for me to get worse, in order for me to digress, it only requires neglect. It requires no intention. I don't have to intend to do worse. I don't have to try to do worse. All I have to do is not intend to get better, and I will automatically get worse. I'm going to make myself sick. I don't have to make myself sick. All I have to do is not focus on making myself healthy. I don't have to make myself poor. I don't have to make myself spend money. All I have to do is not focus on creating wealth. So progress requires intention. Digression only requires neglect. So I fill the gap in my identity with intentionality. I become hyper intentional about what? Always be becoming more. More than what? More than I've been being. If I'm always becoming more than I've been being, then I am being hyper intentional with my life. Okay, so that's the gap in my identity. But guess what? My identity creates my activity. I am, therefore I do. I am who I am, therefore I do what I do. Well, if I'm going to have better activity, I have to own a better identity. So how do I fill the gap in my activity? Because there's a difference between what I'm doing and what I could be doing. So if I use intentionality to fill the gap in my identity, what do I use to fill the gap in my activity? I use ingenuity. I keep on coming up with a new approach until I find one that's my eureka moment. Almost never is our eureka moment found on the first attempt. Almost never. Why? Because if I find my eureka moment on the first attempt, then seeking that eureka moment doesn't turn me into a better person. So even though activity is the output of identity, which is the input, my activity, which is the output, also affects the input, which is identity. So my activity can have an effect on my identity. Sometimes I will discover who I am after I've already become the person. I will discover that I've become that person because of something I've done. Okay. And then, so identity is the input, activity is the output, but activity is also an input. Activity is the output of identity, but it's the input for property. So be speaks to my identity, do speaks to my activity, have speaks to my property. Well, guess what? My activity produces my property. See, covetousness is not the desire for more property. Covetousness is the desire for property that I am unwilling to do the right thing in order for me to deserve to have it. I desire something that I don't deserve. That's covetousness. So why do I have less than I could have? Well, because my activity hasn't produced more. Well, why hasn't my activity produced more? Because my identity, who I think I am, won't let it. So being speaks to my identity, doing speaks to my activity, having speaks to my property. This is my favorite principle of all principles that I've ever learned in my life, because first and foremost, it's the first one God ever spoke to a man. Be, do, have. Being is the root system of the tree. Doing is the shoot system, the trunk and the branches. Having is the fruit system.
It's the fruits.
Wow. And by the way, this is a pattern that keeps repeating over and over in different ways. But when we get it, we're like, okay, if I don't like the fruit, don't paint it. Change the root. Painting an orange red doesn't turn it into an apple.
No. Oh my gosh. But and when I really, as I think of our culture, and I know you would say I can speak as a Black man because I is one, and and so I start thinking about the things that we blame, those contributing factors that we blame on the reason our identity isn't what
Right.
our identity should be, right? Because we think that all these external factors are the things that, who we are, like who our mama told us we were, or who are, the folks that we hung around, or I didn't have a dad when I was growing up, or
all that.
How do we get that identity to not live in this world where we think everything is against us, and that becomes our identity? So that means it stops our activity, right?
We have to have heralds, prophets. And when I say prophets, I'm not talking about in the Old Testament. I'm not talking about in the fourth, like foresight prophets. I'm talking about forth-telling prophets, people who are willing to proclaim the truth, right? We need people to tell us. We need somebody to increase our awareness. If I'm going to go from being a victim of the circumstances of my life to being a victor through the circumstances of my life, someone is going to have to tell me the truth that negates the lie that I believe. It's going to wake me up out of my victimhood slumber, because nobody else can make me a victim. People can attempt to victimize me, but no one can make me a victim but me. I had polio as an infant. I walk with a brace on my leg. It's the direct result of racism, segregation, and discrimination. Me walking with a brace on my leg is the direct result of that. So nobody's going to tell me that I don't understand. I do understand. I just also understand that I am not a victim of that. It is just a part of my assignment. And it's the law of polarity says for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right?
Yeah.
For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So it's impossible to have something, quote, bad happen to you without it bringing along something equally as good. It's impossible to have something negative without it bringing along something equally as positive. It's impossible to have something that's damaging in your life without it bringing along right with it something equally dynamic. And so what I've got to do, I've got to learn to do, if I'm going to be on this journey to freedom and like enter this level of freedom, I've got to learn how to walk around to the other side of my circumstance and look at the other side of that coin. Because I think of a biblical example of this when Pharaoh called Jacob and said, "Sir, how old are you, sir?" Now, here's what happened to Jacob. His sons, he didn't know this is what happened, but his sons took their youngest son and threw him in a pit. And then some people came and took him out of the pit and sold him into slavery. They went back and told their dad that his son was dead. So he was separated from his son when his son was a child. He thought his son was dead. He ran away from his brother because his brother wanted to kill him. He worked hard for 7 years for this woman, and her father tricked him and gave him that girl's sister. And then he had worked 7 more years for the girl he actually wanted, right? And so he went through all of these different circumstances, and then there's a famine in the land, and they go to Egypt to get some food, and his sons are down there, and the prime minister said, "Well, we're going to keep one of y'all, and then go tell you bring your family, and then I'll let this other brother go." And so Pharaoh asked Jacob how old he was, and here's what Jacob said. He said, "Few and evil have been the days of the life of my pilgrimage." Few and evil. Really? Now, guess who else had those same exact circumstances for the most part? His son Joseph, the one they actually threw in the pit, who actually got sold into slavery. And Joseph went down and was a slave in Potiphar's house. Potiphar's wife tried to seduce him. It didn't work. She lied on him. He went to prison for a crime he didn't commit. And he stayed in prison until the perfect time. Good thing he didn't have a goal to get out. Anyway, that's another conversation for a different day. And Joseph named his 2 sons Ephraim and Manasseh. What do those names mean? Well, Ephraim and Manasseh mean, one of them means God has caused me not to remember the labor and the toil in my father's house. In other words, the fact that I had all this trauma growing up in my family. God had made me forget it, my trauma. His other son, he named His name means, and I don't remember which one is which, but his name means God hath made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. So one of the people who went through the experiences, few and evil have been the days of the life of my pilgrimage. The other person who went through the same thing said, God has made me to forget the toil and the hardship in my father's house and has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. So what is that? It's neither one of them were victims. Neither one of them were impacted by the circumstance as much as they were impacted by their perspective.
Ooh, okay.
And most people who think they're a prisoner of circumstance are actually a prisoner of their perspective of what they believe that circumstance means.
So all the things that had been happened to them, the way that they looked at it,
yeah,
the way that they decided is this is what happened to me, and it's a bad thing, and they can look at it. I think one of the things that you talk about a lot is no matter what is in the future, whatever outcome is in the future that we're perceiving it to be, we made it up because
yeah. Anything I tell myself about a future outcome, I made it up. If I say I'm going home this afternoon when I leave work, I don't know that I'm going home. I know that I'm going to head in the direction of home. That's my intention. I could literally trip over the curb on my way out the door, fall down, hit my head on the sidewalk, and end up in the hospital for the rest of the day. God forbid that should happen, but that possibility exists. So when I say I'm going home, I literally made that up. I say I'm going to take a drink of water. That water could go down my windpipe, and I could literally drown right here in a bottle of water. But we don't say I'm going to try to go home and hope that I don't trip over the curb and bump my head on the sidewalk and end up in the hospital, and I'm going to hope that they don't give me the wrong drugs for the wrong injury, and I'm going to hope that while I'm driving home that I don't get hit by a truck. We don't do that. We don't throw up all the contingencies around things that don't matter. Well, here's my question. Why do we throw up all these contingencies around things that do? Well, I'm going to try to build a business. We don't say I'm going to try to go eat dinner. When the reality is we made both of them up. Why don't we just decide we're going to go do what we're going to go do? And so, anyway, I've ranted for a long time, but now I think you can see why be, do, have is my favorite principle, and why, I believe it's interesting. You asked me about how can we break free of this idea of the fact we're a victim? It's so fascinating. I'm thinking about the Trump tariffs right now, right? So you look at the Trump tariffs, people are all bent out of shape. And you have people, the tariffs are great because all we're doing is reciprocal tariffs to the people who've been giving us tariffs all along. Other people are like, no, you can't do it that way because we have way more people than they have, and so therefore it's not equitable, blah, blah, blah. And then you have the people who are like, Donald Trump is he's like, we want to the reason I'm making these tariffs is so we can make America a manufacturing nation again. Well, all of their arguments sound great. Here's what I'm going to say about the whole argument of making America a manufacturing nation again. Where we're going to find workers, because we can't even find people who want to do work that's not manufacturing work. Good help is hard to find. Attempting to turn America, in my opinion, and regardless of what you think about President Trump, whether you think he's great or whether you think he's terrible, I happen to like him personally. I happen to think that he's really, really the best thing that's happened to our country in a while, as far as the president's concerned, which a lot of people disagree with me. But that's fine too. I could be wrong. I don't think I am, but I could be. But I think his idea about tariffs, bringing manufacturing back to America, is like fighting to raise minimum wage.
Yeah. What
you're doing is you're saying, let's elevate the bottom to make it easier for people who are unwilling to develop themselves. Right? Why do you want to make America a manufacturing nation when America has advanced to the point where you no longer need to be a manufacturing nation? We can manufacture stuff cheaper somewhere else and teach our people to learn new skills that will serve them better than learning how to drive a forklift. Not that there's anything wrong with driving a forklift. We're emphasizing the wrong thing. When you emphasize raising minimum wage, you're inferring to the people that you're raising a minimum wage for that you need to stay here for the rest of your life. So I'm going to make you comfortable. Don't be a victim of the rhetoric. Anyway, those are some of my.
Yeah, no, I so appreciate that. One of the things that I know that, at least when I think of, I grew up and they told me I was a special ed kid and that I had to, attend special ed classes. And, I went to a white high school, predominantly white. There's 3,000 students and 30 of us were folks of color, and 20 of the 30 of us were all in special ed class. So, that could have been the circumstances.
That's called a clue.
That was a pretty good clue. I didn't realize it till later in life. But I think of like the things that you were able to do as a result of polio and having this incredible memory, and despite those circumstances that were happening, and I don't even know if it's more of a memory or a recall. But one of the things that I say to myself, well, I don't have this tremendous recall, but I have technology and other things that can help me be able to do it.
Sure.
What would you say, just your ability to do a poem or your ability to be able to speak or communicate better? I believe you worked on that, and some of us don't even work on any of those things. What do you attribute to, to be able to have that kind of?
I believe I'm going to agree with Jim Quick with regard to this.
Okay.
So I believe that memory and recall are muscles.
Okay.
Like muscles, the more you work on them, the stronger they get. People say, I don't have a good memory. Everybody has a good memory. Everybody remembers everything they've ever heard, everything they've ever seen, and everything they've ever done. They just don't have a good system for recall.
Okay.
So if you do, and so first, like if somebody's going to have better recall, the first thing they have to do is stop telling themselves they don't have a good memory. Like, because if like I say to people every now and then, congratulations. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. So why would I say I have a bad memory? I don't have a bad memory. I have a great memory. I have an ironclad memory. My memory is like rock solid. And I have a great recall system. Like people say, I'm terrible at remembering names. No, you're terrible at paying attention when people are telling you their name because you're thinking about the thing you want to say next. Like I have a system for remembering people's names. You know what it's called? When they are telling me their name, I'm actually listening. But right? That'll change the game. Number two, I will repeat their name to them, and I'll usually ask one or two questions. Somebody tells me their name. I'll say, wow, nice to meet you. Let's say, nice to meet you, Bob. How do you spell that? Right? B-O-B. Now, one of the things I learned in signing books, regardless of what the person's name is, always ask them how to spell it. Because you are going to get some people with some names we would call normal names that have some very unusual spellings. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, like, I know somebody named Karen, C-A-R-Y-N. Right.
Wow.
Exactly. So when somebody tells me their name, never in communication. I love what my daughter says. She says the biggest mistake in communication is thinking that it happened. One of the reasons we make the mistake of thinking that communication happened is because we assume that we know what people mean. We don't ask them what they mean, and we assume people know what we mean, and we don't say it clearly. So, when somebody's introducing themselves, I say, "Well, that's an interesting name. How do you spell that?" And then they'll tell me, and I'll say, "So, are you named after someone?" Well, I'm actually named after my grandfather on my mother's side, and they called him Robert, and then they called him Bob. My dad's Robert Jr. I'm Bob the third, and so they just call me B3. Right? So now their name is no longer just a word, it's actually a story. And our minds are designed to remember stories. Like if I say David and
Goliath.
Now, how do you remember Goliath's name? You've never met Goliath. Nope. You've never even met David. But when I say David and, you say the first thing that comes to your mind is Goliath. You didn't say David and Bathsheba. You didn't say David and Solomon. You didn't say David and Joab. You said David. You didn't even say David and Jesse or David and Eliab. His brothers or his father. You said David and Goliath. Why? Because God made our minds to remember stories. Right? So if you can get somebody to engage in a story about their name, I can think of a whole bunch of other questions. I could just ask somebody about their name so I never forget it. So did you ever hate your name or have you always loved your name? And then they'll tell me.
Yeah.
I'll say, have people ever mispronounced your name? And if they have mispronounced your name, what other things have they called you? I know for me, they've called me Marion, Malcolm, Miriam, Melvin, Marvin, Milton. I've been called everything but Myron. Bro, you add all kinds of letters that don't even exist, right? So has anybody ever mispronounced your name? What are some of the mispronunciations of your name that you've heard, right? So have you ever met anybody else with your name? Or if they have a popular name, do you regret having a popular name that so many people have? Are you glad you have a popular name that's easy to remember and easy to spell? Like you can literally sit there and ask people a whole bunch of questions about their name. And so now you spend a bunch of time with them on their name. How are you going to forget their name now? It's a story. You know how to spell it. you have all this information. So now that person's story becomes a part of your story. It's not just a word that's disconnected from context. So is that helpful?
Oh yeah, so super helpful. You brought up intention before, and I know that as a business strategist,
my other favorite subject.
Yeah. So you brought up attention because I think of just the fact that now somebody wants to do it. You're a business strategist. You help people acquire money, and a lot of people are afraid of money anyways. They got this bad relationship with money. But as an intention, I know that okay, now I'm ready to start. There's probably going to be some kind of disruption that's gonna hit me, and I don't know what that is. But what are some things that I have to do with me to become the person that can be with intention? And now, hey, I want to do it. I'm going to do it. I told you I'm going to do it. And then they don't do it. What are some things that we can do now that in our minds, we have intention, but to really make it happen?
So all transformation begins with awareness. So if you think about transformation means there's something I'd like to become. There's someone I'd like to become that I'm not already. There's something I'd like to do that I can't do already. There's something I like to have that I can't have already. Okay, great. So if I'm going to transform from who I am to who I'd like to become, from what I can do, what I can't do to what I'd like to be able to do, from what I don't have to what I'd like to have, then I've got to transform. And the first thing that has to transform is my identity. So how does transformation happen? All transformation begins with awareness. Okay. That's where it begins. So I become aware that there is something that's more desirable. Whatever that is, it doesn't matter. And I'll give you a perfect example of this here in a minute after I'm done saying it. So, there's something that's more desirable. Okay. So after awareness, the next step is intention. I have to intend to step into my new awareness. Okay. But if I'm going to intend to, I've got to go further than just intending to. So where do I have to go from there? I have to say, okay, I'm intending to step into that new awareness, but now I've got to make a decision. I have to decide. Decide is not the same as choose. Choose means pick one. Decide, day of or from, side to cut. So when I decide something, I cut myself off from or cut myself off of any other possibility. This is what I'm going to do. This is what my life is going to be about. Nothing's going to stand in my way. This is what I will accomplish. I decide. So I've got awareness. I've got intention. I've got decision. Mm-hmm. And then I've got discipline. So discipline is what keeps me from breaking the covenant to myself of my intention, of my decision. So discipline is what keeps me from breaking the covenant I made with myself when I made a decision, because the word covenant and the word decide both mean to cut. So when I decide something, I'm making a covenant with me, mm-hmm. Right? Which means I would rather die and keep my word to myself than live and break it. That's a decision. Okay? So now I've got my awareness. I became aware of something I was unaware of. I set an intention on this new thing. I've decided to do it. And now I've got discipline, which means I'm not going to let myself off this hook. Like I decided I am going to start my day with exercise instead of hot bath, cold plunge, hot bath, and then shower. So it's going to be workout, shower, get dressed, go to work. Cold plunge, all that other stuff's going to have to wait till sometime later in the day. Why? I had to make getting in the shape I desire to be in and having the health I desire to have my number one priority, even though exercise hasn't been my number one priority since I was in high school. Okay. But it was my number one priority in high school. Other kids were eating lunch. I would go to the weight room and lift weights. Mm-hmm. So, okay. So now I've got attention. I mean, not attention, awareness, intention, decision, discipline, recognition. I take time to acknowledge what my new awareness, my new intention, my decision, and my discipline have gotten me. That's why, even though I don't lose weight every day, I weigh myself every single morning. Why? because that way I can stay on top of it. I weigh myself every day. But what if I don't weigh? I don't care about that. I weigh myself every day. Why? That's part of my discipline. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So this morning, now yesterday I rode my assault bike for 30 minutes. The day before that, I rode my assault bike for 25 minutes. This morning, the first thing I did was rode my assault bike for 30 minutes. Tomorrow morning, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to get dressed. I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to go out on my patio, and I'm going to ride my assault bike for 30 minutes, listening to music, making my heart rate, getting my heart rate up above 150 beats a minute, sweating like a crazy person. Tomorrow morning, though, I'm going to have a towel around my neck, even though it's not hot out there, because I'm going to wipe all the sweat off my face. I am going to do that before I do anything. Right? So that's my discipline. But I'm going to recognize that I did that. And guess what? Guess what I'm going to recognize it next? Tomorrow morning when I step on the scale. Because I also have my workout, my tonal workout, and my weighted vest workout that I'm going to do when I get home. So I know that tomorrow, like 2 days ago, I weighed 187 pounds. This morning I weighed 183.7. Tomorrow it'll be less. So I recognize. Why am I recognizing? So that I can acknowledge that my awareness and my intention and my decision and my discipline are not a waste of my time. It's very hard for us to work on something that we don't acknowledge is working. And then lastly, so after awareness, intention, decision, discipline, and recognition, the last one is celebration.
Okay.
So when I get to 170 pounds and my blood pressure is like 116/65, I'll celebrate. How am I going to celebrate? I don't know, but I'm going to find something fun to do. And I'll figure out what that is long before I get there. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
Where I locked in.
Where I see I guess the difficult part of it is we assume that we have enough, or we've built this muscle that you talked about before of self-discipline to be able to do all these things. So I have my awareness, I have my attention, I've made my decision. Now I get to the discipline thing. Do I need help? Do I need to solicit people if I haven't developed?
Maybe it depends on your personality and who you are. Okay. But really, like, discipline means I do what I'm supposed to do, when I'm supposed to do it, the way I'm supposed to do it, and I do it that way every time I do it. That's discipline. Like for me, I'm a very autonomous person. I don't like asking for permission. I don't like people pretending that they have the right to give me permission. So for me, like, I don't need a workout partner. I don't need an accountability buddy. When I make a decision and I'm disciplined, it's a wrap. It's as good as done. Like, so it depends on who you are. But I think the answer to the question you're asking me, though, is a different answer, because I think there's a better question you can ask than do I need like somebody to hold myself accountable to? Here's what you need. Here's the thing that's going to create you have to become aware of the high cost of not making that decision and setting that intention.
Okay.
Right. So recently, a very, very dear friend of mine, last Thursday, in fact, he had a brain aneurysm. And I went to see him in the hospital, and he's unconscious, and his family's there, and they're in tears. And basically, the doctors have already told them there's nothing they can do. And his wife told me that he suffered from high blood pressure since he was a kid, basically. Right. And I'm like, okay, maybe like my blood pressure's high. That could be me.
Yeah.
And so I got a clear vision of what not having this intention. I got a very clear awareness of what not having this intention and not making this decision and not having this discipline is going to look like for me and my family if I don't make these hard choices right now. See, the problem is people have this Pollyanna picture of how good life's going to be when they achieve the thing. They don't have a crucify my flesh picture of how terrible life is going to be if they don't. Yeah. They don't have, right? So, like, for me, not eating pork, easy. Because when I think of eating the flesh of a scavenger animal, whether it's pork, shrimp, lobster, and it's like eating flies and roaches to me. Like, because they're the same thing in the animal kingdom that flies and roaches are in the insect kingdom. Like, why would I put that in my mouth? Why would I eat something that eats its own feces? I'm not going to do that. Right? So that's not hard. Not eating pork is not hard for me. That's easy. You know, it's hard for me. Not going to restaurants. That's hard for me. I like restaurant food. And it's not that I like restaurant food as much as I like the idea of somebody serving me. I like the idea of somebody bringing me food and sitting it on the table before me and then cleaning up my mess when I'm done. I know that sounds all bougie-fied. I get it, but I like it. I like me and my wife going to dinner and sitting down and eating dinner and not having to think about preparing food, cooking food, setting a table, like cleaning a table, like running a dishwasher. None of that. Just go sit down, pay them, they feed you, you go home. And then you hang out with the person you love the most. Like, sign me up for that program.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Most people are not really, really good at painting in vivid colors the really ugly picture of how terrible life is going to be if they don't get this thing done. But I don't want to be laying in the hospital with my chest cracked open because I couldn't say no to restaurant food. So guess what I've decided to do for the next 10 days? Just eat raw fruits and vegetables and my protein shake, and no other than my protein shake, no processed food for the next 10 days, at least, maybe longer, and drink water. Like, no sugary beverages, no insulin spiking foods other than fruit, some fruit. I'll eat 3 pieces of fruit per day and my protein shake. Other than that, it's all raw fruits and vegetables. I'm good with that. I'll make my own salad dressing from scratch, and I'll make it from vegetables, spices, and fruit juice. No sugar. I'm just done. Why? Because I love my family. So I just don't want to put my family, like, I want to live my life like a light bulb. I want to shine as brightly as I can for as long as I possibly can. And one day I burn out and it's a wrap.
It's gone.
This whole idea that you have to get sicker as you get older is a myth, but it's a myth that too many people bought into. I am stronger now than I was when I was 30. I'm in better shape now than I was when I was 30.
That is so cool. And how will you celebrate that? Like, because I know, part of your progression here, you made the decision, you're doing the thing, and then have you already thought about how you celebrate or is just life because you get to be that
No, I haven't thought about it yet, but I'm going to. I'll figure that out before I get there. I may fly myself to some amazing location and play 3 rounds of golf at Punta Espada and La Cana and Caracas in the DR or something. Like, it'll be a major celebration.
Oh, sweet. I really want, before we end, is to talk about your faith and what's your belief system that has now been able to help you, or everything that's been able to allow you to accomplish the things that you've accomplished, and why that's so important. I know you do biblical principles with what we're doing, and so with what you do, biblical fitness and business at the same time, and you combine them, which is what other people don't do. Talk about that a little bit.
I do combine them, but God combined them originally. All I'm doing is, God has the best content. I just repeat His content. People think I'm smart, even though I tell them, hey, I didn't make this up. I got it from God. Like, He'll let you use it too, right? It's like I don't have a corner on the market on that stuff, So business is a good idea because business is a God idea. I received Christ when I was 16 years old. That's not religion. That's I received and trusted in the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ for my eternal life, as my full payment for eternal life. Not some good deed I did, not some church attended, not some baptism, not something that I do. Literally, I am not trusting in Myron Golden's good deeds for my relationship with God. I'm trusting in God's good deeds for my relationship with God. I'm trusting in what Jesus did was enough. And then, because He did that for me, I have a desire to live my life for Him. And I do not desire to misrepresent Him because He is my King. And because He is my King, He has already told me in His word that He desires to make me the king of my thing. And so I serve a king who wants to make me a king. There's another king. He's a fake king. He's called Satan, the devil, the enemy, the adversary. He's a king that wants to make people a slave. And then He wants to use the people who he makes slaves to build his kingdom, and he works them like a three-legged mule until they die. I'm glad I serve the real king. Man. And so I don't want to misrepresent my king by not ruling well over my kingdom assignment, which he assigned me to. And so that's where my faith comes into play. I don't do this biblical Bible stuff as a ploy because I think it's going to make me some money if I throw the word kingdom in what I do. I do it because I discovered that this is God's plan. The kingdom of God is a family business. How do I know that? Because Jesus said, "Know ye not that I must be about my Father's business? Yes. I must work the work of him that sent me while it is day, for the night cometh when no man can work." So I do what I do the way I do it because I believe that's the way God intended for it to be done.
Oh, man. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. What didn't I, in the next few, 2 minutes before we finish, what did I not talk about that you wanted to make sure?
I don't know, man. You opened the box, bro, and a whole bunch of stuff jumped out. I don't know that we didn't talk about anything. If people want to know more, they can find me on YouTube under my name, Myron Golden, or Instagram, my name, Myron Golden. I think this is one thing that we didn't talk about. If somebody pretending to be me attempts to sell you some crypto investment thing, it's not me. I don't offer. If somebody in social media messages you and tries to get you to buy something, it's never me. Now, I do sell stuff. I've got my books, my Boss Moves book on bossmovesbook.com. I've got my other book, Trash Man to Cash Man, at trashmantocashman.com. I've got my Make More Offers Challenge at makemoreofferschallenge.com. But I won't message you on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube to attempt to get you to buy it. Like, it's out there for people to find, and when they find it and they want it, more power to them. But I don't inbox people and make them offers. So if somebody does that, they're scamming. They're scamming you. Don't let somebody use my name to scam you out of your hard-earned money. So,
oh my gosh, thank you. This has been so incredible. Thank you for being on. I have my first challenge next week, so I'm excited.
Let's go.
My first offers and teaching people how to do podcasting, of all things, and how to make it happen. And so I can't wait for that to happen. This is, when I think about folks that are in my world and have had influence on me. And, I would say you're one of those folks. And it's such a pleasure to go, okay, these are my heroes. These are my people, because you teach in a way that I was able to learn, teach in a way that I was able to take the information, absorb the information, and then make it my own. And so just the fact that you're here with me today, we will spend more time together. I know that no matter what, but I can't wait to emulate some of the things that you've been able to help me do. So I wanted to just say thank you for doing that. For those of you guys who are just watching this for the first time, and this is the one, there is so many of these really good episodes where I'm just interviewing folks that have been successful, folks that are working on their own lives, whether it's somebody who is, in the like a black helicopter pilot, first one in the Army, or somebody who's been to prison, who's become a pastor for the last 34 years and made a difference as a prominent attorney. There's so many ways that we can be successful in life. I think Myron just stepped us through, oh man, some just incredible things, intention and be, do, have, and all those wonderful things that I hope you take advantage of watching these. Hit whatever the YouTube things that you do, subscribe. And I can't wait for it to talk to you on the next one. So don't forget that you are God's greatest gift. He loves you if you allow him to. And we'll look forward to talking to you on the next one. You guys have an amazing, just incredible day today.
All right. Thank you, brother.